limit every day, and that really kills you in a tournament like this.
Everything I've been doing this week's been worthless.
I don't know what to say. I don't know the lake very well. I tried to stay in an area, and I tried to move around and fish the same patterns within the area, but it just didn't work.
Unlike other sports where the participants lose sight of their human fallibility, where egos replace sportsmanship and guaranteed contracts guarantee nothing to the fans, pro bass fishermen seem to be forged out of another era. 10 years from now, that statement might appear very naive, but for now, professional anglers are unfailingly polite to fans, conscious of their public image, and cocky enough only to maintain a level of confidence in their fishing. In large part, it is the inherent difficulty of the sport at any level that has helped groom a generation of professionals who put their egos in harm's way to pursue their dreams. And in doing so, they've learned to become our heroes. Welcome to Lake Seminole and competitive bass fishing at its best.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is presented by Long John Silver's.
Welcome. Glad you're here for this week's coverage of the Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail. I'm Tommy Sanders. Jimmy Dykes is out this week, and Jerry McInnes is here.
Aren't they doing some basketball stuff at this time of the year?
Dykes is involved in that somehow.
Yeah.
That's his excuse anyway. He'll be back next time. Exciting time, the second half of the season on the Bassmaster Tour.
And you know, we follow the Angler of the Year for our audience and for ourselves, Tommy, but when you get right down to it, it's adding up to about 5 guys in the Angler of the Year race now. However, everyone is still after the most coveted thing on earth for the bass fishermen, and that's the Bassmaster Classic. So we've still got some openings left there.
Lots to look forward to. Let's look at our location this week, Lake Seminole, where they say sport fishing for bass really got its start here in America, down there on the border between Florida and Georgia, northwest of Tallahassee, south of Atlanta. Lots of big fish.
We were at an event there, Tommy, 5 or 6 years ago where the winner had to go all the way to Lake Eufaula to get. It's not that way right now. These guys in qualifying days caught lots of fish, and they caught big fish.
There you go, Bainbridge, Georgia, Lake Seminole. Oh, man. That is fantastic.
Yes, that is fantastic. And on day one, Kenyon Hill brought 5 fish to the scale that weighed 27 pounds. Day 2 saw Brett Chapman, Ken Cook, and Davey Hyde with more than 18 pounds. So yes, Lake Seminole is ready for us. 10 anglers have survived for the final day. Here's the 5 we're covering.
2, 1, 7, 15. Boat number 1, Wood Fish, Hyde, New Jersey, 44 pounds, 10 ounces. 5 guys ahead.
Yep.
Boat number 2, Lee Arizona with 14 pounds, 11 ounces. Brett Hyde. Boat number 3, Norman, Oklahoma, 40 pounds, 6 ounces. Georgia, 39 pounds, 4 ounces, Tom Van Dick. Boat number 5, Fayetteville, Tennessee, 32
And all boats are going to be heading down the Flint River, either towards the main lake, might be going to the Chattahoochee River to Spring Creek, or the Flint River itself for a starting point. The temperatures are in the low 40s. That is cold for this part of the country. There are some idle-only areas in their way, but most everyone is looking for a cool, foggy 20 or 30-minute run.
We're here at the mouth of the Flint River, where the Flint actually starts to turn into a lake. And what you have, it's the first place where the current actually starts to, you start to see a buildup of current because it's neck down in that area. It gets narrow. So the current, along with a lot of flats in this area of the lake, are funneling the fish to the outside edges of the channel. And basically what I had been doing the first 3 days of competition is throwing a man's crankbait along these edges. And I'm switching up colors, and I'm switching up running depths of crankbaits to get them to hit different zones. See, it's nice just to get that, when you get that first fish, you know what I mean? You know that they're still here, you know that they're going to bite. That first fish is really important, you know?
There we go. This could be that important fish he's talking about, so I'm sure he'll be all calm and completely nonchalant after this, right?
Well, and you know, the first fish is important to every fisherman, but it does seem like it's even more important to the guy who's in the lead because, and we watch him throw a buoy out right there, but you do not want to fish defensively, and boy, you do until you have put one or two fish in the boat.
Thank you, Lord.
Water temperature's still a little cooler than it has been the last couple days, and you know, I think it's going to warm up a little faster today than it did yesterday, and maybe, you know, it's the second day after the front came through, and I think they're going to start biting today. Here's one right here, boys. Doesn't feel very big today. He's coming up. Oh.
That fish was shallower than I had been catching them. I don't know if that's a sign. There is a lot less current today. It could be roaming on these flats just a little bit more.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is brought to you by Citgo, and in part by Mercury, and by Triton.
Bassmaster Tour at Lake Seminole, our first look of the year at last year's Angler of the Year, Mark Davis, in good position, but he is still struggling some today.
Yeah, this is the area I caught them out of the first day of the tournament. You know, if you find them there, then you still have to just beg them to bite. You can fish through a place right now and not get a bite and think they're not there, and you just fish right over them if you're not careful.
Well, let's face it, the strength of a really good bass fisherman is finding fish. And Mark Davis is one of the best that there is, and he loves fishing when things are kind of on the tough side. He really thinks that that's when he'll excel.
Well, it must be warming up. He's jumping. That's the first one I've seen jump all week.
Well, it's not like we never see spinning tackle down in Florida. now guys are drop shotting, but that's not at all what Mark's doing.
And Mark is, well, he's fishing spinning tackle. He's throwing a crankbait in about 5 or 6 feet of water. His light line's helping him get down a little bit deeper. And you know what, Tommy? If he can't touch the top of that grass, he'll change crankbaits. That's the secret here. Whether you're using a crankbait, a lipless crankbait, whatever you're throwing out there, you want to hit the tops of that grass every now and then.
Thank you.
We're going to get to talk to Mark directly a little bit later. Maybe we can ask him how that spinning tackle helps him do that.
I'm an hour ahead of schedule. I didn't catch one yesterday till about 11:30. Here it is, 10:15. I've caught one.
10:15 for Mark's first fish. He's tickled about that. Brett Hyde still working on his first.
Oh.
Still working on that first fish for Brett Hyde, and I know the feeling.
That was a good dance, though.
It was pretty lively.
Hey, well, you know what? We said a little bit earlier that first fish is so important to these guys, and here Brett is really, you know, now he's going to get his third bite. So, boy, it's really adding up for him.
Yeah. David Walker's who we're looking at right now.
And isn't it unusual, all the different patterns we have going?
Drop shotters, crankbaits on spinning tackle. It's neat.
And David Walker's kind of doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that's was that fish caught illegally, Tom?
Well, no. If he was sight fishing, it would have been illegal,
right,
but that's not the case here.
I kid there because I love to kid David Walker, but when a fish is chasing a lure down like that, you know, he makes a swirl at it and kind of misses it, and it catches him in the back, and that is very legal.
Yeah, the only time it's illegal is when they are sight fishing. Then they have to prove it and verify that fish was caught in the mouth. You can't go snagging fish you can see.
And sight fishing is what these guys thought they would be doing, but the weather had different plans, and like I said, we have so many unusual patterns, and our buddy Tom Mann is on a very unusual pattern of drop shot.
I guess it's a start. We'll have to put him in there till we get 5.
Basically, this drop shot rig is just a vertical presentation. You're just basically shaking your worm on the bottom, just like you would a little shaky worm. The only difference is this, it kind of suspends your bait up off the bottom. Just gives them a little different look. I don't know, sometimes it's really good in cold water situations like we have right now. We've had a really bad cold front come through Lake Seminole, and normally the fish would be spawning right now and be all over the banks, but we're actually having to fish out here in these deep channels. Most of these fish are 21 to 24 feet deep that I'm catching. But basically just pitching it out like that and just like so, just shaking it straight up and down, just a vertical presentation.
Mark Davis of Mount Ida, Arkansas, doing great in the Angler of the Year points.
Yeah.
Especially this week. That really helped your cause, didn't it, Mark?
Didn't hurt it any.
Didn't hurt it at all. It's looking like another Mark Davis kind of a year, and boy, Seminole kind of played right into your hands this week. I know it's a little slow going right now, but what are your expectations for the rest of the day?
Well, they're high. I didn't catch a fish yesterday till around 1 o'clock, so I'm way ahead of schedule.
Hey, Mark, one more thing before we leave that Angler of the Year subject. You are doing very well, but Davey Hyde just isn't playing fair at all, is he?
No, he's not. He's having a spectacular year, and you know, I was able to win Angler of the Year last year, and I'm not greedy. I know I can't win it every time, but...
Hey, Mark, I want to talk to you about that spinning tackle.
Yeah.
I think someone might be surprised. You know, it's like, well, you cross over the line into Florida, and so automatically you have to start throwing 29-pound test line on a big worm. You know, that's
right.
not really right, is it?
No, it's not. And you know what I'm doing with this little crankbait is I'm trying to get it down over this submerged grass, and that little bait, I can go down to 8-pound test line with that spinning gear and make those long casts necessary to get it down there and then finesse it right over the top of that grass. And that's the only way I found I can get these bass to bite.
What do you mean finesse it over the grass?
Well, get it down to the top of the grass where I'm just ticking the grass, and I'll use my rod tip and I'll pull it and I'll stop it and I'll pull it and I'll stop it. Really, really slow, making that little crankbait just skirt right along the top of that grass. And then these fish are pretty lethargic after the cold because the water temperatures drop 10 or 12 degrees during the course of the tournament. So they're lethargic, they're cold, and that slow presentation will trigger a strike.
And you can feel a lot better, can't you?
Absolutely.
And you can catch a big fish on that rig, can't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you bet. I've caught lots. In fact, some of the biggest fish I've caught in my career has been on 6 and 8-pound test line.
Well, the reason that these fish are not really getting turned on until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, is that a function of the temperature also?
It is temperature, yes. The water temperature this morning we started out was 51, and I know yesterday, but by the time weigh-in came around, it was up to 54, and the fish just gradually bit a little better all day long. And I expect the same thing today. And the other thing about these fish, they're concentrated in little bitty schools on this massive flat, and it's quite a chore to just find those little areas where the fish are holding out here.
One more thing, kind of a change in the subject here, Mark. Rumor has it that on the outside of Mount Ida, there's a big sign that says home of Mark Davis.
No rumor. I've seen it.
Is that right?
I saw it a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
So, Mark, you're a big deal down there in Mount Ida, right?
Well, I've got a lot of good friends there, and I guess they're proud of me. Back in '95, when I won the Classic and I won Angler of the Year in the same year, they put that sign up, and it's still there. We're going to have to update it one of these days, though.
Well, let me tell you something, Mark. We're all proud of you.
I appreciate that, Jerry.
A lot of folks around Lake Ouachita, Mount Ida, Hot Springs watching the show today, and we got to make a point to check back in with him about 1 o'clock.
Okay.
A lot of bites. I mean, there ain't even any doubt about it. It's a thump, and it's the right kind, and just like that right there. Fish came right back and got it. A little one, but right now he looks real good. That's the same one, I'm sure, that I just missed.
Welcome back to Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail. Mike Iaconelli, our leader here on Lake Seminole, and now he's really getting down to business.
And if you think that throwing a lipless crankbait out there is a no-brainer. Just throw it out there and reel it back to the boat.
Yeah.
Watch this guy work it. Boy, he really does a job with it, and he's been doing an exceptional job all week long.
Oh, God, thank you, Lord. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Okay, that one was back in the zone that I had been catching them in. Fish was in about 12 feet of water, outside hydraulic line. Yes. Feeling it now. See, now's the deal where most fishermen go wrong. Now you got to keep it going right now. When that adrenaline starts flowing, you just don't let it quit. Thank you, Lord. Horrible net job there. Now I'm shaking and I can't tie the bait. That's the kind. That's the kind right there. I just got to relax. They're here. Even with the lack of current, they're still here. I'll tell you what the deal's going to be. I'm just going to have to work harder for them and make them react. I'm going to be doing that jerk deal all day, because that's both fish came when I was getting it out of the hydrilla. All right. Come on, school 4-pounders.
I'd be breathing hard, too. That's a good start for Iaconelli.
His second fish, a 4-pound fish, and I want to take a few seconds here and show exactly where Mike is at. And as we look at his track over here, we see that Bainbridge takeoff is upstream, and here is the Flint River. We saw a bunch of boats screaming down that channel a minute ago, and Mike is right there, probably 10 miles from the takeoff, right in front of Butler Creek, going up and down that ledge with his boat, and he's really concentrating on that Flint River edge. Not necessarily fishing it, but the grass flat behind it is what is so important to him. Now, he does make a cast out over into the deep water every now and then, but those holes in that grass is what Mike is really concentrating on.
Drop shotting is kind of like a virus, isn't it? The more these carriers come over here from the west, the more it turns up in the people who've never done it before. They starts turning up in their fishing game.
Yeah, Tom Mann talking like he's an expert with that drop shot. A few years ago, he didn't know anything about it, but that is interesting how it has spread. Boy, what a very productive way to fish. And you know what? He's fishing down there in deep water for fish that probably never see a lure.
I'd say that color's working, isn't it? We'll take 5 of those to start her out and then get 2 big ones. Be just fine with me.
Brett Hyde from Phoenix, Arizona, one of our 2 known drop shotters in the top 10 here. And Brett, I'm curious to ask you if this is your first trip to Lake Seminole.
Yes, this is my first trip to Lake Seminole.
Did you come here with the intention of drop shotting?
No, you know, I tried to just put a pattern together, you know, that it might work. I heard there was clear water here, and I knew if the fish backed off and were in the creek channels, it could be a productive way to catch them here.
Brett, if you don't mind, we've done this. It seems like we do it every week. Tommy, explain what a drop shot is.
Oh, yeah.
It's becoming so popular. But again, would you explain how you're rigging up and just what you're trying to do with your drop shot?
I rig it up with a Gamakatsu number 1. It's just their light wire worm hook, and it's got a little rebarb on it made by RoboWorm. They actually put it on there so that the worm stays up there. But I'm tying an improved clinch knot instead of a Palomar knot. That's just the knot I've always tied. I tie it and then put the line back through the front eye of the hook, and I'm using a 1/4 ounce Lucky Craft tungsten sinker and whatever bait I choose.
Yeah, now someone might be wondering, well, what's the big deal with the knot? I mean, a knot is a knot, but there is a, you have somewhere you're going with that knot, right?
Yeah, the knot's real key on making the actual worm or the hook stand out straight and make the worm stand away from the line.
Brett Hyde to David Walker, a guy who's really made himself a more versatile fisherman in recent years.
Really proud of old David, aren't you? He's had a lot of success and did a great job in the Classic last year, and working awful hard to get back there again. And you know what? We'll probably see him jerking that lipless crankbait as well, because I know he does it a lot too. But right now we're looking at Iaconelli, and I think this is a great example. He's almost violent with it. Now, a time or two here, he really does hang up in the grass, but for the most part, he's just trying to jump it out of there and get a reaction from a fish that's standing there looking at it.
That last fish had it good too. It was actually he had every hook in his mouth, which tells me that that's what I want to see. That means they want the color, they want the crankbait. When they're only hooked on one hook or something, then you start to wonder about the color or the vibration of the bait. But when they're hooked like that, there's no wondering about anything.
Saw a little preview in his boat of what David Walker's fishing here now. Lipless crankbait, also known as a rattle trap, and that's what he's got going.
And these guys are using different colors.
Give them something they like.
Tommy, was that one that they will like?
Well, it's, you know, I wonder why he didn't start with that. That would be my question, you know. If he knew what they liked, why not throw that first? But see,
there
it
you
works.
go.
Absolutely, it does work.
I bet you anything he's fishing with a red or a crawdad shaded crankbait, because that's what David Walker fishes with. But we're gonna,
there's a fish.
Well, we're not going to see either. It's too covered up.
Man, we
grass.
got a heavy-duty side salad there. And that's a good example of what you were talking about, Jerry, the importance of getting that rattle trap into the grass. Welcome back to the Citgo Bassmaster Tour. Mike Iaconelli, our leader, with a 4-pound lead going into today. The last fish we saw him catch gave him a little bit of cushion for a moment. Mark Davis, about 10 pounds back at 40 pounds, still working that flats area up near the dam.
And don't let Iaconelli's big lead fool you. We're fishing in waters that produce big fish, and man, Tommy, 1-2 fish can change everything.
He feels big. Of course, they all feel big on this little rod and reel.
You have to remember now, there's no stumps out there. There's no rocks. Ain't anything for Mark to really worry about. He's using real light line. He lets the rod tip cushion that fish, and he's going to try to lead this fish in, not bullying.
He's big. Big old fish. Oh! There you go. Barely had him hooked. Well, Gerald, it almost worked. Man, what a deal. Six-pounder. Trying to see where that mark was at. That's what I was going to get a marker and throw it out, but when I looked back there, I seen I was close enough to that one still. Oh, that makes you sick.
Tom Mann Jr. is an angler you associate with the state of Georgia. He lives up there
Right.
in Lake Lanier.
One
Does
of my
so
favorite
well.
fishermen.
Oh, absolutely. And the real spotted bass expert of the whole world, I guess. And
Yep.
Tom, a lot of success this week on Seminole. You've been the most consistent angler throughout the week, right around 12, 13, 14 pounds each day. But that second day, you only had 2 fish and 11 pounds, so you had one monster on that second day, didn't you?
Yeah, Tommy, it was just a really, really bad weather day. Wind really blew through here, and obviously, as you can tell, I'm fishing a lot of standing timber. And you know what happens when the wind blows? It blows you through. You can't fish, and I'm finesse fishing, real slow on the bottom, and it was just impossible to fish that day. I got really fortunate to catch the real big fish on about my 5th pitch that morning, and it weighed 9.6. So, you know, that kind of automatically made my day. And I had one more bite all day. I never lost a fish. I had 2 bites that day that weighed almost 12 pounds, but it was just a survival day is what I call it.
I want to know about your technique and what the heck are fish doing in 20 foot of water there on Lake Seminole?
Spring Creek is really just a massive flat. The whole thing up through here is a 20-foot flat. And anytime you can find a 1 or 2 foot, 3 foot drop, that's a big deal to these fish. And that's what I've got right here. I've got a spring right out here in front of me. You'll see where there's no trees. And what that is that's a hole. There's no trees there because that's an old spring. And my depth finder, I'm sitting right now in 25 foot of water, but I could throw right there in about 22. There's about a 3 foot drop. And actually, when I get on the other side of this big stump, I'm going to be in 27, 28 foot of water, and that's hard to find in Spring Creek.
That's a better one. With a Snickers bar in his hand. I do like that one. No chocolate on the carpet.
Delicious. Brett Hyde there on Lake Seminole. We'll take a quick break to look at the point standings on our different circuits here out west, where Brett comes from. A tough battle between 2 tough anglers right there on the top, Aaron Martins and Kotaro Kiriyama. In the central, Russ Moran, Stephen Browning, Todd Faircloth right at the top there. And in the eastern, with 3 tournaments left to go, not even halfway done with their season yet, Terry Scroggins just shading Danny White and Mark Pattinson. Let's look at those Angler of the Year points. Those are important as well. And on the basis of 2 early wins, it's still Davey Hyde firmly in control there. But look at Nixon, Davis, and Roland Martin. Another name that everyone always looks for on that list, that of Rick Clunn, currently languishing right now in 58th place. You can bet he's been thinking about that, and not all favorably.
I don't like being in this position, but at the same time, you know, I know one of these days I probably won't make the Classic, and I probably will be relieved because really, for the last 5 years, I've been wanting to fish different, and when you're fishing for the points and you're fishing for a Classic or even Angler of the Year, you don't fish the way I'd like to fish. I'd like to spend the rest of my career fishing a different way than I have in the past, and I think until I let go of that streak, I'm kind of cursed to fish the same way to maintain it.
You might expect an interesting answer from Rick Clunn. And now Tom Mann, who has apparently abandoned his drop shot spot.
There's one. Good one, too. Good. Oh, it's a big one. Big fish. Stay button, baby. Stay button. Oh, came off.
Well, about all we can say is this past segment has not been to Mark Davis or Tom Mann's liking. Maybe the next one will be a little kinder.
ESPN2's exclusive presentation of the Citgo Bassmasters Tour is brought to you by Spiderwire, by Lowrance, and by Bass Pro Shops.
Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail big tour event this week on Lake Seminole down here in Florida. And earlier in the week, Rick Clunn told us, he said, sometimes it's the little things, even minute, tiny things, that can make the difference between success and losing out in this sport. I don't think Tom Mann Jr. or Mark Davis would call these little things. Boy, they loom pretty big today.
Hey, those 2 fish are gone, though. They have to get over that. They just have to, and it's so easy for us to say, isn't it?
Well, what we can do is we can locate the anglers for you. We want to show you Walker and Iaconelli here in the Flint River and the Chattahoochee River. We have Kenyon Hill, our 2 drop shotters, Hyde, Tom Mann Jr. here on Spring Creek, and down near the dam is Mark Davis.
And these guys are probably 20 miles apart.
Yeah,
Gives you a little bit of perspective of the lake. And And I want to zero in on Mark Davis and look at his trip down the Flint River. He's fishing very close to the dam. As a matter of fact, he's probably 30 miles from Bainbridge, and here is the dam, and there goes the Chattahoochee River to the Gulf of Mexico. And he has a very special place there, and it all centers around grass, Tommy. We keep talking about grass, but as was the image of Iaconelli a little earlier, we can see that we have a drop-off and a big flat. And Mark, maybe even more than Iaconelli, is really zeroed in on the holes in that grass. As a matter of fact, we see him throw a buoy out every now and then whenever he catches a fish, because he wants to be able to come back and be able to fish that particular spot. And actually, he's covering this whole flat, which is maybe about a mile square.
Mike Iaconelli is a guy we've been really looking forward to talking to here in our tournament coverage, because let's face it, he's very colorful. He's a brash young man. He's got a ton of confidence, and I guess
a heck of a fisherman,
and a heck of a fisherman too. I guess, Mike, today the adrenaline is truly flowing, huh?
Yeah, it is. You know, anytime you make the top 10, you get a certain amount of excitement, you know, and I haven't made one in over a year, so I'm real excited. The fishing's been good for me this week, and just really pumped up.
You know, a viewer might think that you're just out there throwing in open water, but you're not. You're throwing at points and pockets that the grass is making.
That's right. Yeah, this lake is filled with type of vegetation called hydrilla, and what it does is it grows off of these points, off of these flats, and it actually will make edges or defined edges. And that's basically been the pattern this week. I'm throwing a crankbait along these deeper edges, trying to intercept the pre-spawn fish that are staging out here. And you know, probably the biggest key for me has been the equipment this week. It's really the final element you need to fish this hydrilla.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, most people, when you think about fishing hydrilla or grass, you think about fishing slow and dropping a jig or a worm in there, but I'm basically using my equipment to help me cover a lot of water. I'm power fishing. I'm using a crankbait, a man's crankbait. I'm using a 7-foot fiberglass rod. And what the glass rod does, it's a teamed Iowa rod, and you can actually use the forgivingness of the rod to help you get out of the hydrilla. And the last element is my sunglasses. I'm actually using my glasses more than my depth finder to follow these edges of hydrilla. They're actual visual edges.
Show us a piece of grass.
Okay.
I know probably all you have to do is dig it just a little bit deeper, and you're there.
I got a big old chunk of it now. Yeah, it's a really unique vegetation. Like I said, it almost makes these walls. It's kind of messy looking, but it's a phenomenal vegetation. And again, it tops out in about 8 or 9 feet of water. And again, that's what I'm doing, just paralleling these edges with the crankbait.
Mike, I want to ask you a question. I've always wanted to ask you this question. How does a guy from New Jersey teach himself or learn how to become a world-class professional bass angler?
Well, I tell you what, I get that a lot. And, you know, you think New Jersey as being a small state and kind of polluted, but we actually have a huge amount of different types of bodies of water there. And that's what helped me growing up. I mean, we have the Pine Barrens, which are basically acidic bodies like Florida. We have glacial lakes in North Jersey, which are, you know, like your Great Lakes up north. And we have reservoirs. So we have a little bit of everything, and that was really my key to learning.
There he is.
All right, Mark Davis once again, maybe with another shot at a big fish. Let's see.
And you know, Mark Davis is really the guy that ought to be able to get over losing a big fish. He seems to be such a calm, collected guy.
He always is. Even-tempered fella.
But you know what? And it looks like he does have pretty good fish on right here. And again, he's fishing probably 6 or 8 feet over that grass. But I bet anything, Tommy, if he gets that guy in the net, he's not thinking about it right now, but the second it gets in the net, he's probably going to think, oh, wish I'd have caught that big one.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That was a huge fish. I mean, that's we probably didn't get a feel for it, but hearing him talking, he doesn't exaggerate much.
No,
and big fish he lost.
And just think what a 5 to 8 pound bass does for one of these guys. Changes their life.
Come here, Papa. Woo! That's a two-handed fish. Man, that was little compared to that and I lost, though. Whew, thank you, Lord. Running along there on my depth finder, and I seen a little hole in that grass. I said, I better turn around and fish that. about 2 casts, and bam. Oh, that 6-pounder's looking tough now, ain't it? Ooh, I'd like to have that one. We'll just have to find us another one. Where was I at when I did that?
I think what happened is that they didn't run as much current today, and the fish aren't biting as well. I think they're still there, they're just not eating today. So I'm hoping this backup deal works. Got some rattle trap fish on the flat. About a 15, 20-minute run, but hopefully it'll be worth it.
Mike Iaconelli making a move. Another guy making a move today. Brett Hyde, he's up to 4 fish now, 47 pounds.
Boy, Iaconelli better find him a good spot because Brett Hyde is after him, man.
The race is on. I know you like the place where Hyde is fishing.
Boy, I do, and I love the name of the place that he is fishing. Look, here is the Flint River. Here is Spring Creek, and here is the shortcut that Brett is using to get over to his spot in Spring Creek. Now, once he gets to that spot, you'll see the tracks go no further because he spends his whole time there. In fact, I think he's been there all week long. And Tommy, he is fishing in a spot that is called, get ready for this,
right.
The Bucket.
The Bucket, yes.
The Bucket. And it is, you know, like Tom Mann was talking to us a little bit ago about the springs up Spring Creek. And that is what Brett has found. And probably the deep part of the bucket is 20 to 24 feet deep. And he's fishing all around the edges of it, of course, with his drop shot. And imagine the edges of it are anywhere from 8 to 12 feet deep, and then he drops off into 20, 24 feet. He's done very well. He's caught some big fish out of there, too.
All right, the bucket. Now let's get back out to the lake and see what Mike Iaconelli has found.
Come on. Yeah. Come on. That's what I'm talking about. They're here. Die. Wrong kind. It's good, though, man. That means there's some fish up on this flat. Whew. I have a feeling they're gonna be here. Saw a big one, caught a pike in about 3 casts. It's nice and calm. These fish are moving up. It's warming. Moving up on this flat to spawn. Good feeling right now. There he goes. Close. He'll do it. It's not much, but he'll do it.
Boy, Tommy, the Lord's being called on a lot today, and
They're really leading. You know, these guys probably feel like they have some special avenues of communication since they're allowed to fish for a living anyway, so you can't really blame them.
Well, I'll tell you what, you get a 3 or 4 pound bass on 6-pound test line down in that timber. I guess you do need a little bit of help from the outside.
A little bit of divine intervention wouldn't hurt at that point. You're looking for all the help you can get.
Now that's what we're after right there.
Brett Hyde finding the success he's been looking for all morning long. He is making a move now. There's no doubt about that. Mike Iaconelli is hanging on, though. Mark Davis looking for another 6-pounder like the one we lost. We are headed for the home stretch.
Love that one.
This week's Fish Eye View has been brought to you by Long John Silver's.
We're looking at a rapidly tightening scoreboard and a fisherman we haven't heard of much today, and that's Kenyon Hill, who's right now catching his very first fish, and that's really a shame because, boy, he had a great event. Led the first 2 days, but on this day couldn't get anything going.
Iaconelli trying to hang on there. Meanwhile, in our Bass Times News, disturbing reports from Florida, where only a year ago water management experts were predicting the demand for drinking water would not exceed supply until the year 2020. Now, officials with the St. John's Water Management District find that they will be reaching those levels as early as 2006. That means that the search is on for alternative supplies. The proposed solutions include pumping water from places like the Kissimmee and Butler chains of lakes, a move that certainly can have a beneficial effect on fishing. Scientists in Louisiana have found a non-lethal sampling technique for the disease known as the largemouth bass virus. This comes as encouraging news for the fishing community, as the virus can cause big trouble for bass fisheries, yet very little is known about it. I want to take a moment to remind you that in the race to qualify for the Classic, we also include the Federation anglers, many of whom are fishing as we speak to qualify for the state tournaments from their local clubs. If successful at the state level, they go to the divisionals, where they're looking to finish as the top angler from their state, then to the nationals, be one of the 5 division winners who make the Classic. And finally, the age of miniaturization has reached bass fishing as we take a look at this stringer from John Sappington at Seminole. Long time since we've seen one this, well, this compact. Congrats, John. 5 pounds, 2 ounces for 5 fish.
Bass Times has been brought to you by Citgo.
Iaconelli on the Chattahoochee River, and as you can see, the wind hasn't been much of a factor at all. Boy, that really helps the guys trying to follow weed lines. And if Mike can boat this fish, well, he needs another one before we go say too much.
Gonna get a buoy real quick. Come on. Ooh. That's the one. Thank you, Lord. Deeper edge. Deeper edge, not up on the flat. Back down a little bit. Yeah, I'm on right on that bend, man. They were right on that bend. Yes! I'm in the zone now. Loving it, baby. I got them pinned. They're right in that little crease of that grass line right there, man. Absolutely love it. Same place, same exact cast. Same exact cast. Whew.
Almost ready to set off the fireworks in the Iaconelli boat there. Our weights are estimated, but 55 pounds, give or take 1 or 2, pretty formidable at this point.
I think Mike Iaconelli set off the fireworks.
Yeah, he's ready to go, no doubt.
Let's take a look at a good decision by Mike Iaconelli out of the Flint River down to his spot in the Chattahoochee. And we're looking at Mark Davis's yellow path right here, and we can see that Mark was still in the same place, fishing that same spot. But Iaconelli is going for another grass bed over on the bank of the Chattahoochee River, and you can see that when he got there, he went up and down this little ledge, back and forth, but spent the rest of the day in that one spot, and it was a very special spot too. A lot of grass, shallow water, and a drop-off on the back side of it. And Tommy, at approximately 7 minutes after 1 o'clock, right in this spot right here is where Mike Iaconelli kind of hit the jackpot.
You know, I was struggling upriver. I felt like even if I had a limit today, because of my lead, I might have a chance to secure the win. So I went over there and I finished my limit out. So it worked to an extent. I wanted bigger fish, but I'll take it.
Mike Iaconelli sounded very confident. In fact, he's on his way in. I know you like his style a lot, Jerry.
Hasn't it been fun watching him fish all day?
It really
long?
has.
It's been fun watching Mark Davis, too. They're like two opposites, but boy, it's been a very educational thing, I think, watching them. Sure. David Walker right here is still fighting for classic points, doesn't know that he hasn't won, and right here at the end has caught a pretty doggone good fish if he can boat him.
Don't jump, don't jump, don't jump. Whoa, there you go. Whew. That's down to the wire. Whoa.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is brought to you by Citgo and in part by Long John Silver's, Flowmaster, and by Skeeter.
Good crowd out at Lake Seminole today. David Walker, Kenyon Hill, and Tom Mann Jr., whom we all watched a little bit today, finished in spots 5, 6, and 7 respectively as we wait for the top 3 to come rolling in.
3-time Angler of the Year, the most respected title in bass fishing, and the 1995 Bassmasters Classic champ, Mark Davis.
Well, I hate to come in and tell fish stories, but what's the greatest fish story of all? What's the oldest cliche in fishing? The big one always gets away. And the big one did get away.
Folks, welcome Brett Hyde. New leader, 9 pounds, 9 ounces, Brett Hyde. What a fantastic week you've had.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for what I've had this week. I had a really bad practice. You know, I just went out there and found one little area that I got a couple bites in, and I just concentrated in that area and then, you know, just stayed there all week.
Folks, welcome your leader after 3 days of competition, Michael Iaconelli. There's your champion, 10 pounds, 8 ounces, Michael Iaconelli. Michael, what a superb effort.
Unbelievable fish. I tell you, I've had a tremendous week here. Super fishery. Lake Seminole, definitely one of the lakes that goes on my top 5 list. I mean, tremendous amount of fish and a lot of big fish. It's just been a fantastic week. It's just tremendous. Unbelievable.
Here is your champion, Michael Iaconelli.
All right, all hail our champion, Mike Iaconelli. Some strategic moves and a big win for the third-year pro from New Jersey. Exciting stuff from Lake Seminole. Let's take a look right now at our Angler of the Year statistics. Davey Hyde still firmly on top on the basis of those 2 early wins on the Bassmaster Tour, but look at the 5 behind him, including 3 Anglers of the Year. It will be exciting next week at our tournament on Sam Rayburn Reservoir down in Texas, another Central Open when we see you next time on the Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail. Bass fishermen, the phrase can be altered slightly to remind us of the inevitable. It's not a matter of if you will be humbled, but how often.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com.